All right, we're back today with Les Kevin, more tech from UTEC IT, and I think that I probably say this every time I got like my all-time favorite guest coming in, but I can tell you this absolutely will be one of my all-time four favorite guests. And today I'd like to introduce none other than the amazing Grace Van Kannel, who's my oldest daughter and one that we're very proud of, along with Les. And then we snuck him in. You won't believe this, but we snuck in.
Last minute.
The mastermind behind everything we do here at Speakeasy, Rob Johnson. Rob?
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. This is my first podcast. We'll give it a run, see how it goes.
Yeah. Let's see if we can teach you anything about the podcast business.
I just love that radio voice.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So great. So today, what we wanted to do is we got Grace to get up early, get her hair done, put her makeup on at dark 30 in the morning, get up here and come into the studios and talk about young people. Grace is a senior at University of Michigan and is going to be embarking on a nursing career. But during this time, while you're looking at it, as employers, we all face challenges with trying to recruit all your peers and counterparts down there. And we want to talk a little bit today about what are you looking for an employer? Maybe help us think of some things that we can bring to the table. Brought Rob in. Rob's done a lot of hiring here and looking at people, and we wanted to ask a little about that. So other than me babbling about my daughter, Grace, who incidentally was responsible for the Les Kevin, more tech, UTEC IT bourbon glasses as a Christmas gift, which you can probably start buying online, Rob. There's been a big demand of these at Speakeasy,
Absolutely.
right?
We're sold out.
Yeah, sold out. Definitely sold out. We sold one, and we were all sold out. So, yeah, no lie there. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Grace.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Grace. I am Kevin's daughter, and I'm happy to be here today. I go to the University of Michigan. I'm a senior, and I will be graduating in May with my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing.
All right.
That's good.
Good.
Hey, so Grace, I was, chatting a little bit earlier, and a lot of the, what we're hoping to glean out of this and other business owners is your generation. So Generation Z. And I wanted to go back just a little bit. What motivated you to attend college? Because right now, when we're running into a lot of younger folks in the technical field, they're kind of feeling, things are moving so fast that there's other avenues, right, for education. So what motivated you on that? Why U of M? There's a lot of great nursing programs around. And why, coming from a household of Buckeye fans, spanning generations, and what's it like to grow up in that Buckeye environment and wear the maize and blue?
Oh, it was terrible. I woke up most Saturdays to the Ohio State fight song, so obviously I had to rebel and go to U of M. But
so we just learned something. Gen Z is the same as Gen Y, boomers, rebellious.
Opposite of what your parents do, right?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that going to college was just something I always grew up thinking. Mm-hmm. I never thought that there was actually really another option. It was never like forced upon me, but it was almost just like assumed that was the path I was going to take. Especially my mom being a teacher, both my parents going to college, it just seemed like a natural progression. Why U of M, why nursing? It just felt really right. I grew up close to University of Michigan, obviously loved the school for my entire life. But I do think it's different depending upon what field you want to go into. I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. Obviously that required a degree, but for someone who's working in technology, I do agree with them that there's so many different avenues. There's certificates. I don't think that you need to always go to a 4-year university to end up being successful. So
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things about interviewing people is when they come in and they say, hey, I got this 4-year degree or I got this MBA. I don't care. I'm a creative. We shoot videos. We do podcasts. I more so care about what you've learned in the last 4 years, regardless of where it was at, whether it was on YouTube or at home or at a fancy college or wherever it is. I more so care about the integrity of the person and what they do rather than the degree. Now, in your field, of course, you need a BSN, you need, the MSN or, whatever level it is to be in healthcare.
So actually, when we're thinking about that, so if you went into interviewing for a nursing role and you said, hey, listen, I Googled it last night.
I got a great attitude. I'm learning, but I got a great attitude. Yeah. Thankfully, Dr. Hayner went to school for 7 or 8 years for me, But
he's got a lot of integrity.
Yeah.
That'll save me on the table.
But no, I'm serious. I think to your point, Rob, right? For a lot of businesses, we're less worried about exactly what the diploma says, but we want the attitude, right? And we can teach them and coach them.
Yeah. And do you think most businesses feel that way, or do you think you and I are in the minority on that, Kevin? Because I feel like a lot of businesses overvalue degrees and undervalue character and integrity.
Well, obviously, there's certain things we just take right off the table where you have to have that degree.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
I think for a lot of businesses, especially right now, we're just looking for good young people, and I think what we want are people that are coming in, they're coachable. I know we're less worried about the degree on our tech side. We want to see some type of training or aptitude in the background on some of that, but it's still attitude driven on those folks. But we can coach them up. Sales, it's people that can just relate. We're looking for people that can relate, and I think that's always a challenge on
intellectual curiosity, vital, right? Good work habits. Those are the kind of things that in our field anyway transcend roles.
As your friends, Grace, right, that you're hanging out with school with and going around socially, what are they looking for? What do you hear? What did you feel the feels, and what was important for you when you were looking for jobs?
For me, my biggest feature or something that I was looking for was the kind of training I was going to get, because I know that my first job isn't going to be my last job, and I want to make sure that I am setting myself up for success. So I will be joining Cleveland Clinic come this fall or late this summer, and I'm really excited to work there because I think they have some really good training, and it's really long and intensive. My managers are supportive. I have coworkers that I feel supported by. So that was something that was really important to me. I think amongst my friends, a big thing right now is flexibility. That's something I don't get. Obviously, in my career, I can't be virtual. But my friends it's all about flexibility. I think it's, just kind of the times right now, especially with COVID going on and being able to work from home. I think more than ever, that's super important to my friends because it does allow you to travel a little bit more. Maybe instead of having to leave Friday after work, you can leave Thursday after work. You get Friday, a new day in the city where you can go try a new coffee shop or work from a new location, whatever. Still get your work done, still see your family, your friends, and kind of enjoy your 20s to their fullest. Yeah.
So, the flexibility piece, right? That, we hear that a lot. Technology is now enabling that. And I wouldn't be surprised in the healthcare role in the time to come that will, come into play as the different technologies. What about social issues?
What do you mean by that?
So if somebody, let's say all things are being equal, and one organization might be socially progressive in their thoughts and attitudes versus one that might be a little more older school, so to speak, does that play in a decision? Does the company participate in Earth Day? Does the company have progressive hiring practices?
I think that that does matter. I think that a lot of people are looking for that in this day and age. I think that it depends a little bit on the personality of the person and how much they place certain value on certain things, because I don't think that you're going to find everything in your job, especially your first job coming out of school or whatever. So some things I think that people like me have to be able to compromise on. So I think it depends on kind of the person more so.
Where does money fit in that?
I think money's a very big factor.
Does money outweigh flexibility?
That's a good question. I think it would go kind of back to the person. I think for me, money would play a bigger role than flexibility, obviously because of my job description. But I think for a lot of my friends, they would have said flexibility pays more, especially when it's comparable. If there's a huge gap, then there's a huge gap. And depending on like the kind of city you want to live in, you know, do you want to live in an apartment? Do you want to have a house? Like those kinds of things. What are you saving for? I think that may influence their decision as well.
Rob, you've been interviewing a ton of people here as we staff up at Speakeasy and building that. What were you seeing and hearing from the folks?
Well, I see a lot of people that are looking for culture more than money or more than, it's really just someone that's actually going to care about them and be in their corner. And that's why I think we've not really had an issue hiring through this, and we have just about 13 people here now. Every time I've had a job open, I have a waiting list of people that want to work here, which is nice. People that we can get a hold of and say, hey, this is now available.
That's because you got a kick-ass studio here that's elaborately designed, and you got bourbon everywhere. These kids are hook, line, and sinker.
I know. I did put a padlock on the cabinet just for that reason. So, but I think a lot of it comes down to culture. Like, how well is somebody going to treat you as an employer, and do they actually have your back? Like, we have a philosophy here that's, we value employees more than clients. And I openly say that on my show and obviously on other shows, because if I don't have their back in a tough situation, they're not going to respect what we do as an organization. So if I'm constantly throwing people under the bus or not taking ownership, people are not going to want to stay in a culture like that. So curating a culture is super important. It can't be too family where it's like now there's infighting and politics and you like this person more than this person. But it also can't be super, sterile and clinical either. You need to have a balance.
I agree. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes, right? Unless we're probably old school. We're the two oldest dudes in this room right now. So, it's been an adjustment for us too, right? But you got to have the balance, I think, to attract the folks. And, you need to have some fun. And I always believe that they know you care. That makes a big difference and goes a long way. But it's a little bit of adjustment for us too, right? To see how we came in and the difference. And
But I think there's an old, and it is an old phrase, but culture eats strategy every day. That's not a new thought. So culture itself resonates.
I try to tell folks, and I don't know if it works or not. Who knows? But when we're meeting with young kids like Grace, is that the days of them coming in and working there for 30 years, 40 years, and getting a gold watch when they leave. Well, they know me. I'm not going to give them a gold watch. Anyways, they said, Van Kannel, you're cheap. But no.
No, it was that one at the bubblegum machine at Kroger's.
Dolex. I always tell them that we're looking for a commitment from you. It's kind of like I relate to going into service or university where we want 2, 3, 4 years so that we can build with you, that we can teach you and have you develop and grow and blossom. And then at that point, it's up to us to stimulate you, right? It's up to us to keep you at that point. But let's build on you, give you a skill set. And our job, I think, as mentors and coaches is that we need to, develop talent. And if we don't have the right opportunities for them, we need to help them go someplace where they can, develop and build on their goals and dreams. But it's our job as employers to stimulate them enough to keep them there and challenge them.
Yeah, well, 2 things. Going back to culture, I think it's just, when I'm looking at an employer, I want someone who is open-minded and adaptable. And I think that Les and Dad, like you guys, are trying out a podcast. That's something new, And so being able to kind of reach out and connect maybe with a younger population or trying something new that you haven't tried before, I think is really important and something that I would look for when I'm looking at a job.
Awesome.
That's something that people don't think about is what is a company doing online, and this push that we're making at Wayne Media is to push everyone to be their own media company of sorts. For that reason, not only is there ROI benefits in having hey, you have this, this podcast, or you have advertising going out, but just what you mentioned, when people are looking at companies they want to work for, are they advancing in their media? Are they leading the charge with, whether it's social media or advertising, or are they actually investing in these things that are emerging technologies? Because if they're not, and you go to their website and it looks like, oh, hi, 1998, you don't want to be a part of that because you feel like they're still caught up in that 20 years ago type of mentality, and they don't have anything from a vision perspective that would make you want to be there.
So, Rob, I'd just add on to that. in a different view is our clients. They're looking for organizations that can peer around the corner, so to speak, see what's coming down the line.
Yeah.
So, your initiatives pair well with an organization that is looking around the corner. And for us to maintain our employee base and our client base, we need to be able to move with those times.
Yeah, 100%.
I think this morning is a great example. Mm-hmm. So you settled in on
Cleveland Clinic.
Cleveland?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Didn't know you were going.
Yeah. So
Neither did he, but we bailed him out, right?
Yeah. But I just wanted, you had multiple places, right? So in multiple geographies, right? So I want to just kind of get in the geographic piece, and that is you stayed in the Midwest, because I know you had potential to be on coasts, right? So what motivates you to stay in the Midwest?
I think it was just being close to family and friends was important to me.
Right.
Honestly, yeah.
So I think that's wonderful. We were at a convention that was, way out west, beautiful, palm trees, and and they were talking about how many people were moving and the growth of their population. But yet, here in the Midwest, we've been able to stay. We're growing, but we're not declining. And your generation, are they staying? What is your take on that?
I think a lot of my friends are, especially from U of M, are relocating to cities. I think that is not necessarily a new trend. I mean, your Boston, Chicago, New York, LA, Seattle, those are always really big cities that people gravitate towards. But just like with work being remote essentially right now, like I have a lot of friends who got jobs a year or two ago and have never been into the office.
Really?
Yeah, I have friends who have jobs and live in completely different states, and their business is based out of another city. So I think that is like definitely what people are looking for, because maybe you've always had a dream to live in New York, but you don't want to pay the New York rent. So maybe you live at home but your job's in New York, then, or vice versa.
I think some of that too is Michigan. We like to joke at home and have our rivalries, but it is such a top tier university that I think there are a lot of opportunities from big companies and they're moving people around. So there may be more disbursement of talent after they leave Ann Arbor than some other universities around here that draw more locally, right? Yeah. Versus Michigan's a big draw from all around the country. How many of your classmates were are really from Michigan? So many of them came from different spots too, and then they go back. But I think not the answer for Grace, but as we were discussing at home, and she was bouncing ideas off of us, and she said, "Don't tell us anything, Mom and Dad, just listen to me," right? But she talked about the flexibility of her work, that she could stay in the Midwest close to family and friends until she knew exactly where she wanted to go. Obviously, nursing, she thought was transferable anywhere that she landed, but she could travel a lot with her flexibility in her schedule to see where she wanted to end up. And we hope not to lose her, but we fully expect that we might lose her, right? To try a different area, a different region, and see how it goes. So,
and you want one thing that's unique about being in that particular field. Because when I first started, I worked in ER for like 6 years and worked in the hospital setting, and then I got really tired of it.
and then they realized you didn't have that degree. He just had a good attitude.
Exactly. Well, they found
How
out.
did he get in
that,
here?
Yeah, that Kinko's diploma I printed off wasn't that great. What's cool about that field in particular is it's such a meritocracy, where those who are going to be, the best, those who are able to have kind of ignore flexibility to some respects, are going to have the most opportunities. When EMARs came out, so these electronic medical records, nurses that were willing to go all across the country and go to different states to spin up these programs and teach would make 4 times what they were making in hospital. And it's the people that have the lack of flexibility or the flexibility to be able to move and travel in that particular industry that can really be on the front line of doing something really important, like when we went from paper to digital. And then now with COVID, we're seeing, people that are able to kind of withstand, hit after hit after hit of censuses being full and it just being being wild. So it'll be interesting to see, in 5 years what that
Exciting.
progression looks like for you. That's super exciting. And Cleveland Clinic, it's pretty much the World Series of medicine. So
Cardiac, right? They do a lot, but that's
Yeah, it's cardiac. And I'll be in their cardiac ICU.
so your dad can continue to eat the donuts in the morning. No,
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll save us.
Soon I'll be taking care of him. Yeah.
We were just glad to get her off our payroll and onto somebody else's. So kudos to you there. But
No, but I think you touched on an important topic, and that's of burnout. And I think that a lot of, especially nurses, are facing that. I think that's across every industry, though, especially with COVID and like working at home for a couple years now. And I think it's important that your employer can find jobs that's stimulating, like kind of like how you were touching on earlier, Dad, and that push you to want to do better and try new things and are thinking outside of the box. And you're not just doing the same repetitive tasks over and over and over.
yeah.
well, you almost gave me a heart attack. You started talking about Gen Z getting burnout already. These guys are just walking into it.
Yeah, but
is
it's
that
true.
a topic of discussion?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
huge.
I would say all my classes especially revolve around that. I know a lot of my friends actually have and as part of like their benefits package, it's not just like PTO and like your personal time off or whatever. They have like mental health days where they can take off a day, and I think that's really important and flexible. And I think that it's really great that some companies are choosing to focus on that as well.
Yeah. A lot of companies are wrapping that into like this unlimited PTO strategy that they have as well to kind of hedge against burnout. Because what they're realizing is, especially in like these intensive industries where you don't really have the benefit of, I can't leave at 3:30. What they're doing is they're cycling employees into this system so that way they have times where you can take kind of a mini sabbatical. You can take a week for these, this mental health break, and especially in nursing right now because censuses are high and staffing so low because everyone that's catching COVID, not repeatedly, but
It
all
is
the
true.
staff, it's something that they are actively working into their HR strategy, which is how can we cycle employees effectively so we don't burn them out, so we can keep our retention high.
Really?
It's a dance.
But I just got to come back to that. So you and your friends, right, as you're hitting the job market and interviewing, that's really a topic of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Well,
I'm
is
just curious.
it all friends, or are you talking healthcare? Because healthcare is pretty stressful right now, and there's been a lot of back. But is it all your friends?
I would say it's a majority of my friends. I think that a lot of people didn't anticipate how hard the transition from like school to work is. And, now it's not, you get your Fridays off and you're done with class at 2:30. Like, no, you're working 9 to 5 every day, and you only get 2 days off. And one of those days you have to be responsible and like go grocery shopping,
Hey, girl, it's called it's called the real
It's
world.
called the real world.
Welcome to life, daughter.
But yeah, I think that just a lot of people my age didn't anticipate that kind of adjustment. So having flexibility, having these days where you can just be like, okay, wait, I need to just regroup and regain myself, is important. And I think that a lot of my friends, the ones who are really enjoying their jobs, have said that their managers are actually the ones who have pointed that out and saying, hey, look, I've seen you have been doing a really good job on this, but you're not giving yourself enough time off to think and relax and kind of decompress and, take some time off, relax. Yeah.
That's important for us to know that's as we build our HR strategy, that's a key component.
Yeah, right. It's all part of the environment, and it's the manager, and it's as leaders, we got to make sure that we got the pulse on that, and there's times to step on the gas, right, and there's times to hit the brake, right, and put in park and regroup.
I don't think that's not all to say that we just want to be really easy, like a comfy job. Like we do want to be pushed. I do want to have like challenging assignments and projects that are meaningful and more worthwhile, because that makes my job more rewarding and my day more rewarding. But yeah, I would just think like a manager who has a pulse on that and knows their employees really well and enough to know, when to give feedback and when to kind of give that like tough love is really important.
Remember, you want to be pushed. When I nudge you here and say, "Here's $5, go shovel the driveway," or here's $6 to cut the grass, kid. All right, just keep that in mind.
Okay.
But no, it's a challenge, and I think Les, we got to continually look in the mirror and rethink how we attract folks. And Rob, I mean, again, it's a really cool studio, right? We got microphones, we got video cameras in here, and we're doing a lot of stuff on the web, right, with the social media, and I think that helps draw kids into it. And you've been a great leader here. I mean, to ramp up like you have.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one thing businesses need to pay attention to. And when I was talking to, I had an interview I was doing, and they were asking me about kind of the scale of this place. And one thing I told them is businesses really need to pay attention to retention, and they're not putting enough emphasis on it. And it's everything from the interview process. How many times are you seeing these people before you hire them, to how are you actually caring for them as an employer to work them through this process? And the reason why is because economically speaking, from a macroeconomic perspective, we have a 5% unemployment rate, people looking for jobs, and they will shift if one benefit is better than the other, and they do not care about your feelings.
Right.
From an employee to employer perspective. So retention needs to be nailed from the beginning if you're going to have any type of meaningful organization that's going to scale, especially at a small business level. How are you retaining your employees? What is your retention strategy? Do you have one?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, get one.
Well, right, as small businesses, I mean, retention is very important, because that cost to onboard that new employee, to recruit them, find them, train them.
Yeah.
That it's very expensive for us, and we feel it.
The ramp
the big companies, yeah, right. If you're losing thousands of employees, that gets expensive too.
Yeah.
It's expensive across all business, but it really impacts a small business because we're not skilled, right, for all the people to do the training and stuff. So
yeah, my thesis during my MBA was on organizational development and onboarding, specifically in retention. So when we did a study in a corporation on how expensive it is to replace one person, someone that makes $40K a year, and you need to replace them, you're going to spend between 10 and 20 grand just to get that position back up and running. And you might not write a check for 10 to 20 grand, but you're losing sales. You're pulling leads to train that new individual, and you have spend time on that new employee. So you add all of those costs up, and the more expensive the person is to rehire, the more expensive the retention cost is. So it's one of those hidden costs of business that is never talked about on a small business perspective.
But it's felt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not strategized around enough. It's not talked about enough. So especially for younger people that have unlimited options, like the market is wide open if you care. And that's why, like, I have younger nieces and nephews. I tell them all the time, if you care, you can go ring the bell at almost any company right now, because people need good people, and it doesn't take much to get into that organization. And once you're in, you can write your own book essentially.
Sure. Yeah. I think one thing you can't teach, or two things you can't teach, are work ethic and like those interpersonal skills.
100%.
And so I think if you have those, you're set, you're golden, and it's a really good time to be joining the workforce.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, all right. Anything else you want to send us off with, Grace, before we get out of here today?
I don't know. I guess thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Well, actually, we should be thanking you very much. So you're a Gen Zer, right? What do they label?
I think I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial.
I'm at like the tipping point. I'm like the oldest millennial ever.
You're an
Dad's
X.
a boomer.
No, he's not actually.
He acts like one.
He does. I'm the boomer here. So literally, we got 4 different categories, and that's one of the. Before we wrapped up, I just wanted to ask you that. So the workforce today is multi-generational. And at this table, we're sitting at 4 different blocks, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you guys talk about, I mean, you and your friends, does that ever creep into the discussion?
Yeah, I think it can.
And if it doesn't, it's okay to say.
Yeah, I think it can, because I think it ties back to the culture, especially not especially, just in any field you want to go into, any business. It's, what are the people like? I mean, the first question that I ask is, can you tell me a little bit about your team and what the dynamics are and what the culture of, the floor is, or what your team is. And so I think that typically my generation thinks that older people are not as willing to change. But if they are,
Let me look for my pencil so
Yeah.
I can write that note down.
on the blackboard.
On
Yeah.
the black chalk.
Start chiseling.
Yeah, chiseling. I need a chisel and some.
But yeah, I think if they're willing, if they're open-minded, if they're adaptable, I think that that plays into the culture. And then I think that the age differences don't super matter.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too that you bring up that you're asking the employer questions when 20 years ago that would not be how an interview would go. You're asking me for a job. How dare you ask how my culture is ran?
Oh yeah.
And just the fact that that is a norm now, like I love that so much because that is what helps grow and scale companies. And the ones that have always had an eye towards how well are they taking care of their people, those are the ones that are still around. And the ones that can't answer that question, what's the culture like on the floor? How does your staff work together? That's a leader that's not in touch with the team. And that's a red flag that you should probably just carry on and look for another company.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not, especially I think amongst me and my friends, it's not just about checking a box like, okay, I have a job, I'm set.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that it's a good fit, like on both ends. And it's not going to be useful or worthwhile for me if I join your company and I hate it when I could have just saved all of us that trouble and just asked these couple of questions, maybe got a better sense of the expectations or how the team runs, and then made my decision from there. Because you know, it should work both ways.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Well, it's funny because the old days, right? The employer carried all the weight. Right now, we're in that position right now where the interviewee or the job seeker is the one that's carrying all the weight, and you kind of want to get to that balance. But I think the good companies always, to your point, always did recognize that, and it's about creating a work environment. And I think at the end of the day, you just want to work for people that you like. Just like, you buy from people you like, and it's our job to be likable.
Yeah. It's been great, been educational for me. Now, here's a question, right? As we usually wrap towards the end of these, Kevin always asks, he says, what's your favorite bourbon? So knowing that the relationship here is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Be careful how you answer this. The correct answer should be, Dad, I just turned of age a couple of years ago, so I'm just learning about the different things. But what do you like? If I gave you a bourbon, what would you like? She'll pass.
Yeah.
She'll think something else, right? Well, here.
I will pass.
You got us these beautiful glasses, and we forgot to give Rob one. But we'll raise one in his spirit and his honor, and thank you. Thanks for being on today.
Cheers.
And good luck.
Way to go at it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Rob, for joining us. Thank you for adding some depth to this conversation because Les and I couldn't bring any, but between you and Grace, you guys did a great job.
Yeah.
And the correct answer is Angel's Envy.
Angel's Envy is
That's
right.
the number one.
Yeah, that's the correct answer.
So, thank you.